Imagine building something so precious that people would kill for it. Imagine filling it with everything your civilization ever knew: medicine, astronomy, poetry, philosophy, every answer your ancestors ever found, every question they ever asked. Now imagine watching it burn. Not once, twice. And here's the part that keeps me awake at night. The second time it burned, the world didn't just watch, the world applauded. Because by then, the people holding the torches had convinced everyone that what was burning wasn't knowledge at all. It was heresy. It was backwardness. It was something the world was better off without. What I'm about to tell you isn't just about a library. It's about how easily we're trained to celebrate our own loss. Let me take you to Baghdad. The year is somewhere around 800 AD. While Europe was stumbling through the Dark Ages, while monks in remote monasteries squinted at the few surviving texts they had, Baghdad was different. Baghdad was a dream. The caliph of the time, a man named Al-Mamun, had a radical idea. He believed that knowledge had no nationality, no religion, no enemy. So he built a house. They called it Bait al-Hikam, the House of Wisdom. But it wasn't just a building, it was a magnet. Scholars from Persia, India, Greece, Egypt, they all came, not to fight, not to convert, to translate, to preserve, to build. Think about what that meant. While Europe had lost most of Aristotle, Baghdad had him in Arabic. While Europe had forgotten how to do surgery, Baghdad was performing complex operations. While Europe argued about how many angels could dance on a pin, Baghdad was calculating the circumference of the earth. They got it wrong by a few miles. A few miles in 800 AD. And here's the question that should haunt every educated person alive today. How did we lose that? Every empire has an enemy. Baghdad's came from the east, the Mongols. Genghis Khan's grandson, Hulagu, to be specific. In 1258, they surrounded the city. 200,000 men, maybe more. Baghdad had never seen anything like it. The siege lasted less than 2 weeks. When the Mongols entered the city, they didn't just kill people, they killed knowledge. The House of Wisdom, that magnificent collection of centuries of human thought, was systematically destroyed. Here's where the story becomes almost unbearable. They threw the books into the Tigris River. So many manuscripts were thrown that the river reportedly ran black with ink. And then, because there weren't enough books to satisfy their destruction, they added the libraries of every mosque, every school, every scholar's home. Scholars say it took a week for the Tigris to run clear again. A week of ink. But here's what most people don't know about that fire. The Mongols weren't interested in what the books said. They couldn't read them. They just knew that knowledge was power, and power belonged to them now. That's the first kind of erasure, destruction by those who don't understand what they're burning. But the second kind is far more dangerous. Fast forward about 400 years to Spain, to a city called Granada. The Muslims had been in Spain for nearly 800 years. 8 centuries of coexistence, sometimes peaceful, sometimes not, but always productive. Jewish philosophers, Muslim scientists, Christian translators, they'd built something extraordinary together. But by 1492, it was over. The last Muslim kingdom had fallen. Ferdinand and Isabella, the same monarchs who funded Columbus, had a new project. They called it the Inquisition. But here's what textbooks don't tell you about the Inquisition. Yes, they burned people. Yes, they tortured heretics. But their real target wasn't bodies, it was memory. In Granada, after the conquest, the Archbishop of Toledo, a man named Cisneros, ordered something remarkable. He ordered the burning of every Arabic manuscript he could find. Not just religious texts, everything. Medicine, astronomy, poetry, philosophy. And here's the detail that changes everything. When scholars protested, when they said, "But these are scientific texts, these are Greek philosophers we've lost in Latin," the Church had an answer. They said, if the Greeks knew the truth, they would have been Christians. Burn it all. And people applauded. Because by then, the narrative had shifted. Arabic wasn't the language of science anymore. It was the language of the enemy. Muslim scholarship wasn't the identity of scholars. It was the identity of heretics. The same books that had preserved Aristotle for Europe were now fuel for Christian bonfires. And nobody stopped them. Nobody even wanted to stop them. This is the part of history that makes people uncomfortable. Because it forces us to ask, how do we learn to hate knowledge? The books burned in Granada weren't destroyed by illiterate invaders. They were destroyed by educated men, men who could read, men who knew exactly what they were burning. They just didn't value it. And that's the mechanism. Before you destroy something, you first destroy its reputation. You label it dangerous. You call it backward. You convince people that what they're losing isn't loss at all. It's progress. Think about how that works. A child in 16th century Spain grows up hearing that Arabic is the language of the enemy, that Muslim scholarship is inferior, that everything worth knowing exists in Latin or not at all. By the time that child is an adult, they don't need to be told to burn books. They want to burn them. They feel virtuous doing it. And that's the second fire, the fire that doesn't need torches, the fire that burns inside people's minds. The Mongols burned Baghdad because they didn't understand. The Inquisition burned Granada because they refused to understand. Which one is more dangerous? Before you tell yourself this is ancient history, look around. What's burning today? Not books, at least not usually, but attention? Yes. Curiosity? Absolutely. The willingness to engage with ideas that make us uncomfortable? Burning faster than any manuscript ever did. We live in an age of information abundance. More books, more articles, more videos than any human could consume in 1,000 lifetimes. And yet, we've never been more certain that our sources are right and their sources are propaganda. We've never been more comfortable dismissing entire fields of knowledge as biased or dangerous or irrelevant. The algorithms don't need to burn books. They just need to make sure you never see them. And here's the terrifying question. When future historians look back at our time, what will they say we lost? What knowledge died because we decided it wasn't worth our attention? What wisdom faded because the algorithm didn't recommend it? The Mongols burned the Tigris black with ink. We're drowning in information and starving for wisdom. Which fire is worse? The House of Wisdom didn't completely disappear. Some books survived, hidden in villages, buried in courtyards, smuggled across borders by people who knew that knowledge was worth more than their lives. And today, scholars are finding them. In Timbuktu, manuscripts are being restored. In Tehran, Persian scholars are digitizing texts their grandparents risked everything to hide. In Istanbul, Ottoman archives are opening. The ink that ran in the Tigris didn't disappear, it just seeped into the soil. And sometimes, soil remembers what people forget. because knowledge has a survival instinct. It hides, it waits, it whispers itself into new languages, new cultures, new generations. The question isn't whether knowledge survives. The question is whether we'll be alive enough to receive it. They thought they could drown wisdom in a river. They didn't understand that ink doesn't disappear. It just stains everything it touches. And eventually, the stains start asking questions.